You sold out Madison Square Garden 1 million times, like you've done arenas around the world, and that it means nothing the second we're in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And they kind of treat you as if it means nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
Like, was that like being around De Niro? Is he funny at all? Like,
he would like go to his chair after the scene. I would go to my chair, and he would have like, you know, a bunch of papers and whatnot, and he'd be on the phone, he'd be talking. Is this guy opening up another Nobu? In between scenes? So now I'm in a scene. Me and De Niro are in a bedroom, and we're talking about my wife's side of the family. And I think the line was something like, yeah, and they're walking around like birds. I'm like, bah! He was even going, what are you doing? The next scene, we're like, just stick to the script.
what's up, everybody? Welcome to Flagrant. Today, we are joined by, we got to give compliments up top. I know that you're going to hate it, but we have to give the compliments up top, okay?
We have to.
It's quite possibly, well, no, absolutely one of the biggest comedians in history. Probably the biggest comedian alive right now. He might be in movies and such. He might have a TV show coming out. We have Sebastian Maniscalco.
Wow.
Today on Podcast Crazy, we're going to be taking a look at stand-up Andrew Schulz getting his retro comedic ass handed to him by fellow comedian Sebastian Maniscalco. And by retro, we mean racist. Here he is in action.
You guys watch Squid Game? It was fire, Squid Game, right? It was a little racist, though. Y'all didn't think it was racist? Half the Asians die because they can't stop at a red light? You don't think that's a little bit fucking racist? The rule to the first game is, hey guys, all you gotta do is stop when the light is red. The look of horror on 500 Koreans' faces when they realize they never done that in their whole fucking life. How do you stop at the red light? How do you do it? They was using teamwork to stop at a red light. Bro, I put my money on that Pakistani kid so fucking fast, bro. You know he been driving Uber since he's 14. He not playing around. He's stopping some fucking red lights.
Okay, we won't tell anybody we laughed if you don't. But just how far is Schulz willing to go? Just last month he ran into real trouble after James Duncan and Fuhad Dawodu, better known as Shits and Gigs, had to apologise after facing a significant backlash over an episode of Andrew Schulz's series Flagrant. The pair said it was a mistake not to challenge the host over his comments about black women. In reality, Schulz has carved a name for himself as an edgelord comedian with his little mustache and rummage sale clothes. We must say there's a thin line between looking hip and looking homeless. Maybe he is a hipster. Hipsters like to bring old ideas back into vogue. Maybe that's what Schulz is doing too. Only he's bringing back racism, misogyny, and generally lower IQs. Let's dive in.
I gotta ask you something.
Yeah.
The mustache.
Yeah.
It's not even a question, it's just a statement.
Where are you going?
Where are you going?
I gotta stand up now.
So here is the latest episode of Schulz's podcast, Flagrant. The definition of flagrant is something wrong or immoral or conspicuously and obviously offensive. So that definition can range from a crude gag all the way to P. Diddy's hard drive. On this episode, Schulz's guest is comedian and actor Sebastian Maniscalco. He released his first comedy special back in 2009 and has done another 5 since. He grew up in a Catholic Italian family and was an altar boy aged 8. So he'll be well used to punching creepy mustache guys hard in the dick. He's also acted in good movies like Green Book and bad movies like About My Father with Robert De Niro.
Summer place for the big 4th of July weekend.
I can't leave my father.
This is the first summer since we have to say goodbye to your dear mother, and you're going to leave me to burn the sparklers and eat the hot dogs alone.
Why don't we just bring him?
Nah, I don't think so.
You hear this? Ladies, he's worried his immigrant father's going to make him look like some kind of Goomba.
Listen, if we're gonna do this, Dad, you gotta dial it down with
With all the... what is this?
Indeed. What is this? Well, according to review site Rotten Tomatoes, it's 37% rotten and about as funny as a burning orphanage. The film got smashed by critics, but was actually very popular with audiences, making it kind of like the Pornhub of family-friendly comedy movies. Saying that, Sebastian, who bases a lot of his stand-up on his relationship with his dad, is now so famous they've named a sandwich after him.
Comedian Sebastian Maniscalco has sold out arenas across the country.
dad was working 18 hours a day. I think I formally met my dad when I was 18 years old.
His dad, Salvatore Maniscalco, is a common theme in his acts. So we decided to meet up with him at this Chicago suburb deli in his neighborhood. They have a very special sandwich there.
We heard this is where you can get a good Sebastian Maniscalco sandwich.
You definitely heard correct.
Hi,
yes.
you guys.
How are you?
What do you think, Salvo, when you come in and there's a sandwich named after your son?
I can't believe it, really. I
Really?
can't. It's great.
What is it about him that you think is so good?
I mean, that him growing up and hearing the stories of his childhood, I mean, I have the exact same stories. The eggplant sandwiches at lunch and kids would laugh at me, like, I have that.
The school wasn't responsible if the veal piccata spoiled.
I know, he's so good, though.
I hear you got some amazing sandwiches. Let's go.
So, there you go. It must be something to be so famous you can literally eat yourself. Something less famous men have been trying to do to their bratwurst sausage since the dawn of time. But when you consider that Bill Burr's recent comedy movie, Old Dads, was so atrocious, I think it's fair to say comedians need to stop making cringy feel-good movies. Even if Robert De Niro does need the work, stand-up writing just doesn't seem to transfer to the silver screen. If it did, you might find that rather than Darth Vader saying, "Luke, I am your father," he'd instead be saying, "Hey Luke, your mum is so fat, if two men made love to her at the same time, they'd never meet." But I digress. I am actually a bit of a fan of Maniscalco. He's carved out a nice piece of the stand-up comedy audience, and he can wear a leather jacket without looking like a complete tool. He kinda reminds me of Eddie Murphy, but for the Italian-American community, with nostalgic jokes done in a physical comedy style. Being Italian, he probably has more connections to organised crime as well, which is always a bonus should he do a run in Vegas. His appearance on Flagrant just recently reminded me of Shane Gillis's appearance, so I'm going to walk you through all the cringiest bits where Schultzy outs himself as the hack broken comedy brat that he is.
Told this story and this shit resonated so much. It was about like the nerves and anxiety you had on The Irishman. Mm-hmm. Now, I haven't done The Irishman, but there is something about like you sold out Madison Square Garden a million times, like you've done arenas around the world, you're the highest selling and you walk into a movie set and all that just goes away.
Goes away, man. Yeah, so this is something I'm not used to doing, which is acting, you know. I do stand up pretty much, every night or trying to work on stuff. So now I'm in a scene with Pesci, De Niro, and Scorsese's coming out of nowhere. Like, I don't even know where this guy is at on set. And it's nerve-wracking. It's I had a lot of anxiety doing that.
I wonder if it's only in us where we can feel like the top of the world in our industry and that it means nothing the second we're in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And they kind of treat you as if it means nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
Like, did the grips and stuff, the people who work on the movie, they know you and you're like the biggest star, right?
See, I never even think anybody knows me. I swear to God.
It's just, but I get what he's saying. Yeah, go.
Yeah, I mean, like, every time I put tickets on sale, I ask myself, is anybody coming? So,
Here you can see, like Shane Gillis, Maniscalco knows that his number one job is to entertain the audience. Just turning up isn't good enough. Otherwise, you're just another barroom bore, or a Joe Rogan Netflix special. This is where a certain stress and anxiety seems to come from Maniscalco that these other Muppets don't care about. They just want to get paid every time they turn a mic on, or get a hand put up their big behind, as Muppets tend to do. They think it's our privilege just to hear them speak, which may actually be the entire point of Podcast Crazy, but let's not obsess over the details. There's a common theme with great entertainers, and it's imposter syndrome. It creeps in and never leaves them. Just ask any Nepo baby or Lily Allen, although she's both. I find that so interesting though, because they come off as so confident and relaxed, especially Maniscalco, with that swagger and charisma that he brings to his stand-up, and even in these interviews. But I think that's what makes these kind of guys so relatable and down to earth. It's because he knows who he is and where he stands, and he's not trying to pretend he's something else. Compared to the others, he's human and relatable. Schulz has no modesty, which is weird because he's got a lot to be modest about.
I'll give you an example. I did this voiceover in Super Mario Brothers. I was Spike. I have two kids, 6 and 4. So we're at Universal Studios. There is a Super Mario store. So I said, kids, come on in. Let's go see Daddy's character. They got every character on the wall but mine, Spike. So that's kind of sums up my career. I'm I have fans, but I'm not like widely known.
It's funny you think that. That's so funny you think that.
Like the Hollywood Matrix thinks it's like this weird like sideshow. And we walk in and we're like, wait a minute, no. This is the coolest thing and we're the best at it. And they're like, that's great. Here's your lines, here's your set, there's your trailer, you're sharing it with 3 other guys, there's 1 bathroom.
Yeah.
And you're like, I travel on a bus everywhere I go. Like, we don't give a Yeah,
it doesn't translate over to, like you're saying, TV and film.
You know, it's interesting how when comedians get big enough, they seem to all want to head over to Hollywood and do movies or TV. I think it's mainly from guys who don't have big podcasts or social media followings, or the older generation as they're more commonly known. Maniscalco actually mentioned on this episode of Flagrant that he likes to do those kind of gigs for the exposure that it brings, and then he can capitalise on that with his stand-up tours, kind of like Jim Carrey in reverse, but less depressing. I know a lot of you know who Maniscalco is. He's obviously super famous now, but I've never spoken about him on my channel before, so let's get into some cringy bits now because for some reason, when Andy and the Toy Story boys sense that one of their guests has a backbone and lives a principled existence that doesn't involve casual racism in exchange for dollars, they go all weird and quiet, and they don't know what to say, just like most of America after an election.
Do you get road rage at all when you're driving?
No. At this age, I actually relish the time in traffic.
Why?
Generally, when I'm driving and I'm gonna get in traffic, I'm alone. And those times, if I have an audio book or a podcast on, I actually welcome it. Yeah, there's no real road rage. And when I have kids, to me, it's more time in the car with them. So I like it.
Yes, you like the family. I'm
a family guy.
The kids.
Very traditional, very family.
Okay, we're not into the family yet.
See how the conversation goes dead when one of their guests says something completely normal and well thought out? If you recall, they did the exact same thing with Shane Gillis when he was on, where they were all sitting around dumbfounded as to why Gillis wasn't a diva like Schulz is.
What is your one bougie thing? What is your one thing that it's like?
Oh, that's a great question for you.
I'm a little bit like, I wouldn't want people to know. I'm a little bit
I don't
embarrassed.
care if they know. I have first class flights.
Have to do first class so you can read your Steinbeck. I was really impressed with that.
Shut up.
Obama, okay, but what's the other bougie expense? Is it like, okay, obviously the comfort of first class. Is there anything you're like, ugh, I didn't know that I was this guy, and then you experience it and you're like, now I kind of have to be this guy?
No.
Really?
No.
Hotels, you don't care? You don't have to stay at a nice hotel?
Hotels.
Okay, so we're going to find a lot of
things.
things.
A little. But no, it was like, I thought I was like, I don't care where I stay. And then I got in the worst hotel possible.
And it's like, no.
I called my manager and I was like, all right, can we, what the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking like the worst hotel possible.
Yeah.
Like motel, like you park in front of the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so what do you demand right now?
Nothing.
You have a rider?
No.
Any snack?
I
Any
can't
snack?
I
Nothing?
can't figure you out.
In my green room, I get fruit and hummus.
Hummus is good.
And
Solid.
Bud Light and White Claws.
Solid.
But that was just my manager came up with that.
I cannot figure it out. I can't figure you out.
Why?
That is a rider, but he said he didn't come up
I
with
didn't do that. She just did it.
She knows.
But it's a nice luxury.
Yeah.
Nah, but it's like,
What else?
you want steak dinners. And
Well, I want chicken and steak because
No,
I
just
don't
get
want to just
pizza.
eat.
you see the
I
difference.
don't want to eat pizza.
Yeah.
You
That's
see
it.
the
I
difference
understand.
between hummus and White Claws.
What do we start with?
Between-
We have a hummus platter that's
Hummus
there all the
platter.
time.
No, you start with that. His whole rider is just hummus and White Claw. So there's a difference.
So what are you ordering for dinner?
That's what I'm saying. It's like that is crazy. What's going on here?
What are we talking about?
Nothing.
There's got to be one. You've got some money. There's got to be a thing. Nothing?
He's embarrassed to be remotely demanding.
I would never be demanding.
See?
Out of shame.
Ever.
Now.
The perception,
I mean, hopefully I get there.
The perception of bougie is worse than the perception
I
of
like
gay.
it.
Oh,
for
that's
shame.
interesting. Okay, so
This is I have one pair of pants. These shoes stink. I've been wearing them for 3 months.
that's a 3-month white sneaker?
Yeah.
Oh, hell.
Look, see how the conversation goes dead when one of their guests says something completely normal and well thought out? The dumbfounded look on their faces. It's like the look on a dog's face after you show it a card trick. Like this with Gillis. They just can't figure out why Gillis isn't a bad mustached diva like Schulz is. These guys just can't figure out humanity. It gets me every single time. It's like they're worried they might catch some human decency as it's transmitted through the atmosphere. Same here with Maniscalco. It's like they won't stop until their guest reaffirms their preconceived ideas of how a celebrity comic should behave so they can justify their own diva-like and punchable tendencies.
Say, for example, dropping your car, because I've heard some legendary tipping, right? Like, you know, I remember I was hanging with Rogan once, he drops the car off, it's 100, picks it up, it's 100.
Okay, that's aggressive.
Yeah.
He's responsible. He just said he was responsible.
I don't know why, but when Andrew told that story about Rogan, all I pictured was Joe hopping out of his car and being the same height outside standing up as he was sitting down. Possibly because if Rogan ever appeared in a production of Snow White, he'd definitely be playing Grumpy or Alpha Dwarf. Sorry, I ruined it for you guys as well. Anyway, the efforts to reveal Sebastian's true colours continued in vain. But this next story was actually really funny. Take a look, and I'll ask you a seemingly obvious question afterwards.
Into furniture, but again, furniture is a really high expense when you're dealing with a party. To rent furniture, it's a big dent, right?
Okay.
You got the bartender, you got the catering, there's a lot that goes into having a Christmas party, at least in my wife's eyes.
Yeah.
I said this year, let's do something small, you know? Let's have 8-10 people over at the house. We'll get our friend Dom to cater it. We'll get some drinks. I'll pour them. Right? We don't need a bartender.
Yeah.
But as it starts, you know, to go, it's like, all right. Next thing you know, there's a truck in the driveway, and there's moving people in my house. So it's. I like to entertain. I really do.
Yeah.
And if I spend my money on anything, I don't buy cars. I don't buy jewelry. I buy experiences.
Yep.
And if I have experiences with my friends, my family, or if it's a vacation, I'd rather spend my money on that than go out and my...
Okay, hang on. Alright. Is that actually a thing? Do people really hire furniture for a party? And when I say people, I'm maybe beginning to believe they might be lizards or Illuminati. I'm not talking about tables and chairs. It seems you've redecorated the house. If that's legit, that has to be one of the cringiest rich people things I've ever heard. Obviously, apart from P. Diddy's massage techniques. Imagine going to someone's house and all they have is this random furniture in there to impress their guests, and then everyone already knows that they've rented it out for the party because they've already been to their house like during the day for a coffee. I've still got unboxed flat pack in my house from IKEA. Anyway, Schulz kept poking to the point where Maniscalco actually had to tell him straight up that basically, you got to get over the money thing, bro. Move on. This was great. Take a look.
I just had a 50th birthday party. There was like 50 people at the party.
Ooh, that you kept it tight.
I kept it tight.
Because you could have extended.
We could have, really blown it out. But
what do you spend on something like that? What do you spend on a nice little 50th birthday party? I mean, it's not 10 G's. Like you wouldn't just spend 10 grand on a little 50th birthday party.
I'm not into pricing.
Yeah, he's not comfortable with this.
I'm not.
I mean, we can do
He's
it.
a Catholic kid, bro. He's not going to talk about money.
You should know Italians never
Immigrant,
divulge what they're spending on stuff.
Because they got over on you? They got over? Because if you got a deal, you would have told me. No. Please believe me. If you got a deal, the first thing you would have told me.
I'll just give you this.
$1 million?
No, not $1 million.
$2 million?
There's no $2 million. On a party? Are you crazy? No.
Can I guess? Can I throw a guess? You don't have to say yes or no. I think it's 75.
$75,000?
Yeah. Might be 100 actually.
Money is so dirty, right?
It's dirty. It's a
but
dirty
it's
business.
so fun. Money's
so
fun.
Are you a guy that likes to tell people, yeah, I dropped 50 grand on a kit car?
Yes, because yes,
Exact example.
because it's so embarrassing. I can say the number.
Yeah, but would you tell me how much you spent for your wedding?
No, I wouldn't share.
Okay, so
we got a deal. We got a deal. I would tell you on the side. I would tell you on the side because we got a deal. We got a nice deal.
All right, see, I wouldn't even tell you when the camera's off and we leave. I wouldn't even tell you what I spent on my 50th birthday party.
But you want to know what I spent on my wedding?
I don't care.
You do a little bit.
I really don't.
Just a little bit. Just a tiny.
Oh man, that's so good. He literally told Schultzy to his face that he didn't care, and then proceeded to laugh in his face while patting him on the shoulder like a parent does when they ruffle a precious little kid's hair. But Schultzy would not drop the money talk, a classic brag and bore. The thing is, when Satan eventually comes to collect his soul, I'm not sure he's going to be able to take the cash with him. I've noticed that Schulz does this thing by asking his guests questions in a way that allows him to flex on them and brag about his own success and fame. We all know somebody like this. We all cross the street when we see them. So they were talking about Sebastian's latest special from last year and how he took this year off so he could get ready for his tour. This is what he promoted on Flagrant in this episode. I'm going to pick this up in a moment, and I'm also going to bring in Bert Kreischer because I think there's another interesting comparison to make. But first, let's take a look at this clip.
A lot of pressure to come up with material.
That's the thing. Like, you have a podcast, but it's not like a source of your life's income. Like, you can't just, your podcast is broke. What I'm trying to say.
It is.
You know? Yeah.
It is.
Fortunately, you make the most money ever doing comedy, so you can afford these amazing things that you do. But for us, we can make a living on the pod, and then it puts less pressure on, okay, I got to get a new hour ready to go by this time.
Okay, so let me break this down. Sebastian's last Netflix special, titled Is It Me? And it isn't. It's definitely shallow bling merchants like Schulz. It was released around this time last year. What Schulz was talking about was how Sebastian is taking this whole year off, and he's coming back for a tour next year in July, titled It Ain't Right, which could potentially be all about Schulz. Now, Andrew's point was that he has the Flagrant podcast, which makes around $250,000 a month. I know, the world is just wrong sometimes. Anyway, he wouldn't have to stress about his income if he took the same amount of time off as Sebastian did. Now, don't be mistaken, Sebastian is one of the highest grossing comics at the moment from touring and releasing specials. He clearly has millions in the bank, but what I found so interesting about this whole conversation was this next bit. For me, this is probably one of the biggest distinguishing features of comedians like Maniscalco compared to guys like Schulz and Bert Kreischer. And with them, by comedian, I mean person who can shout really loud.
So the cool thing is that you get to work from home, you're around your family. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things where you don't have that pressure to, oh, shit, I need a new hour by February.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go, because this tour starts here and I gotta go.
Yeah.
You could do that whenever the hell you want to.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but it is difficult to come up with.
How the are you coming up with a new hour?
Well, I gotta live. That's why I took some time off. I was constantly on the road, this and that, and the other thing. I had no time to even live my life to extract any material.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I said, you know what? Let me take a beat here. Let me concentrate on other things, whether it be a TV show, the podcast. Let me spend some time with my family.
Smart.
And I was talking to Chris Rock about this, and he kind of put it, he goes, there's no way you could make an entrance if you never leave the room.
There's a thing that sometimes you see comics doing with it. As part of their joke, they're referencing when they did. One time I did this in Alabama, and then this happened. And every time I see it, I'm like, oh, you're not living a life outside of comedy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, the only things that are happening to you that are like worth talking about are the other things that are happening in comedy.
Yeah.
And people don't do comedy.
They don't do comedy.
They live life.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, you got to extract from real life experience.
So that right there, apart from the obvious talent gap, is precisely what differentiates comedians like Maniscalco from guys like Tom and Bert. He has standards. Those other guys are constantly putting out content, overexposing themselves, both figuratively and literally, and just generally trying to jam way too much into each month compared to what they can actually handle. Less is always more. When it comes time for them to do a tour or put out a special, it comes off as rushed, unedited, or generally lacking originality or thought. There really is no beginning to their talents. Did you notice how Bert was only concerned with milking his fame for every dollar? He didn't mention his actual fans once, ensuring that his comedy meets a certain standard. So that they actually enjoy his shows, he's got that shotgun approach where it's all about capitalizing on momentum. But what Bert misses is exactly what Sebastian was saying. And credit to Schulz, he actually agreed and made some good points himself. You need time to go outside and smell the fresh air, spend time with friends and family, and live your own life. Comedy is all about taking life in and turning bad situations into funny ones. Just like Schulz's moustache. I can see how that would be a great source of inspiration for really creative comedians like Sebastian, who used real-life experiences and turned them into interesting stories and observations. Guys like Bert seem to think that their lives are just inherently interesting, or that they have the ability to just grind it out and write jokes every night because of their comedy brains. Maybe one day comedians like them will say something interesting, and maybe one day will be enough for all of us. Anyway, that's my breakdown of Sebastian Maniscalco's appearance on Flagrant. I hope you enjoyed it. Drop a comment below to let me know what you guys think about all of this. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider jumping on board so you get all my uploads right there in your feed. That's it from me. I'll catch you in the next one. To wind up, here's a real comedian in action.
I'm in line, I'm looking at the guy making coffee. He's got a half top on. Right away, I'm upset. Just hair all over the oh, come on, bro. It's 8 in the morning. I don't want to see hair funneling into a belly hole. This guy had no belly button, had a belly hole. Do you know what lives in a belly hole? If you got one, go home tonight, take an air duster, blow it in your hole, and watch what falls out on your table. All right? If you're working food and beverage with an exposed belly hole, you might as well have your left nut hanging out of your shorts. It's the same thing, nut, hole, hair. Just get your hole away from the scones.